Hello. In this week's Torah portion, Acharei Mot, we read, quote, "You shall therefore keep my statutes and my ordinances, which if a man performs, he shall live by them. I am the Lord." The Talmud derives from this verse that Judaism enjoins us to save lives. The logic is that it says, "You shall live by them." Jews must live by the Torah and not die because of it. This is the doctrine of Pikuach Nefesh, regard for human life. Even if you must break commandment to save a life, yours or another's, do so. In next week's portion, we read, "You shall not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor." These words were echoed much later by the prophet Ezekiel. An alternative logic in the Talmud is that the objective is to maximize observance of commandments. Allowing someone to live increases the number of commandments observed. For example, violating Shabbat to save someone allows him to observe other Shabbatot in the future. The Mishnah says that if we are uncertain whether life is truly in danger, we must err on the side of assuming it is. If it turns out there was no threat to human life, there is no sin and no reason to feel guilty. How far can you go? The Talmud says that healing is prohibited on Shabbat because you need to crush herbs to make medicine, and crushing is prohibited on Shabbat. Today, medicine comes ready for use, but Halakha says that the rabbinic decree remains applicable even when the original reason for it does not seem to apply. However, healing is allowed on Shabbat to save a life. This is illustrated in the Talmud story of how the two most prominent rabbis of their generation violated Shabbat to save a man, who would later himself become the greatest rabbi of his generation. Quote, "Hillel the elder worked every day to earn half a dinar, half of which he would give as tuition at the study hall. One time he did not find employment, and the guard did not let him in. He went up to the roof and sat at the edge of the skylights to hear the words of the living God from the mouths of Rabbi Shmaya and Avtalion. It was Shabbat Eve. Snow fell upon him from the sky. Shmaya and Avtalion noticed that less light was entering the study hall, went up and found him covered with snow 3 cubits high. They freed him, washed him, and smeared oil on him, and set him opposite the bonfire to warm him. They said, 'This man is worthy for us to desecrate Shabbat for him.' If one is sick on Shabbat or Yom Tov, many rules are relaxed. For example, one may put out the light so he may sleep. One may slaughter kosher animals to feed him. If unavailable, even non-kosher animals are allowed. Doctors may heal him on Shabbats. They should be Jewish doctors and work without payment. If unavailable, non-Jews may treat him. The Taz, a 16th century Polish rabbi, said that the violation must be done by the greatest Torah scholar or most observant Jew present to teach what an immense privilege it is to save a life. The sick may be driven to the emergency room. Companions may go along. When a woman is in labor, Shabbat may be desecrated for everything she needs. One may light a fire to warm her and a lamp so she can see. For 3 days after childbirth, one may desecrate Shabbat for her, even if she says it isn't necessary. From days 3 through 7, one may not desecrate Shabbat if she says it isn't necessary. But from day 7 on, one may not desecrate Shabbat even if she says it's necessary. On Yom Kippur, the sick must eat and take medicines. Even a healthy person seized by a fit of ravenous hunger may eat, even treif. Pregnant women may eat whatever they want. Organ donations are allowed if the donor's life is not at risk. They even override the prohibition against mutilating the human body. However, one may not harvest organs from the living just to store them in organ banks. One may put out a fire on Shabbat. Some say it is not allowed if only property is at stake. Others allow it for fear that the fire may propagate and cause deaths. In life-threatening emergencies, one may travel or use electricity on Shabbat and even eat treif. In all cases, your life comes first. The Talmud illustrates this as follows. Two people are in a desert, and only one of them has water. If both drink, both will die. But if only one drinks, he will survive and reach civilization. Ben Petora taught that both of them should drink and die. But Rabbi Akiva taught that the life of the one who owns the water takes precedence. Akiva prevails. You are under no obligation to give your life to save another. There are, however, some disputed points. Are you even allowed to save another person, knowing for certain that you will die in the process? The majority says it is not allowed and is akin to suicide. If there's a chance you will die in the process of saving another, should you try? The majority says that if you estimate that chance to be below 50%, you may do it. But if above 50%, you may not. If there is a small chance that you will die in the process of saving another, are you allowed to do nothing, or must you try? The majority says you must try. What if the decision is still about you, but not yours to make? How do third parties decide who lives and who dies if it's in their power to decide? For example, assume you're a doctor in the intensive care units and two critically ill patients are brought in. You only have one ventilator. Let's say they're the same age and equally likely to die. How does halakha guide your decision on who lives and who dies? Another important question is, how imminent does the danger of death have to be for you to be allowed to invoke Pikuach Nefesh? Obviously, if someone is drowning before your eyes and you can save him by breaking a commandment without seriously endangering your life, you must do it. But what if the danger is, say, exposure to radiation that will cause cancer 30 years later? One should factor in the possibility that a cure for cancer may be found in the meantime. The Talmud places three limits on Pikuach Nefesh. Quote, if a person is told, transgress this prohibition and you will not be killed, he may transgress that prohibition and not be killed, except for the prohibitions against idolatry, forbidden sexual relations, and murder. However, if anti-Semites force Jews to transgress publicly any commandment to shame Judaism, Jews may not do it even if they have to die. Quote, the sages taught that one may transgress in the face of mortal danger only when it is not a time of religious persecution. But in a time of religious persecution, when the Gentile authorities are trying to force Jews to violate their religion, even if the violation concerns a minor mitzvah, one must be killed and not transgress. Rabbi Yochanan said, even when it is not a time of religious persecution, the sages say that one may transgress in the face of mortal danger only in private. But if he was ordered to transgress in public, even in minor mitzvah, he must allow himself to be killed. At least 10 Jews must be present for the act to be considered public. A rabbi asked, but what about Esther? Wasn't her sleeping with a king known among the Jewish public? Why then didn't she accept to die instead? Abaye answered, Esther was a passive participant. The obligation to die rather than engage in forbidden sex applies only to men. A woman is passive and merely submits, so she is not required to die. End of quote. The Talmud reports an incident in which a man was not allowed to engage in illicit sex even to save his life. Quote, there was an incident involving a certain man who set his eyes upon a certain woman, and passion arose in his heart, and he became deathly ill. And they came and asked doctors what to do. And the doctor said, he will be cured only if she has sex with him. The sages said, let him die. She may not have sex with him. The doctor said she should at least stand naked before him. The sages said, let him die. She may not stand naked before him. The doctor suggested she should at least converse with him behind a fence. The sages insisted, let him die. She may not converse with him behind the fence. An objection was raised. If the woman is married, the matter is understood. But if she is single, let the man marry her if she agrees. Rabbi Yitzhak said, his mind will not be eased by marriage. As it is stated in Proverbs, stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. In other words, only illicit sex could have cured the man. Unquote. Sex is always considered very highly on the scale of Jewish values. May one kill in self-defense? Yes. The basic law is laid out in 4 places in the Talmud. VeHaTorah amra, im ba lehorgecha, hashkem lehorgo. The Torah has said, if someone comes to kill you, rise early and kill him first. It's not a mere permission, but rather a duty, an obligation, even a commandment. If the only way to stop a potential murderer is to kill him, then you must kill him. You may not be a pacifist or a martyr and allow yourself to be killed rather than killed. However, the Talmud adds, if a man can stop a murderer by maiming one of his limbs but kills him instead, the man is guilty of murder and executed. Now, the word murderer conjures up an image of a man in his 20s with an evil face, running towards you with a knife. But that is not how it's understood. The murderer, who is called the pursuer or rodef in Hebrew, does not have to be malicious. He is anyone who stands. Here are 4 examples. First, the Mishnah says that if the life of the mother is in danger and she's pregnant, abortion is required because the baby becomes a pursuer. Quote, if a woman is in life-threatening labor, one must cut up the child in her womb and bring it out limb by limb, because her life comes before the life of the child. But if the greater part of the child has come out, one may not touch it, for one may not sacrifice one person's life for another person's life. Nevertheless, again, one must first try to save the mother by maiming the fetus, such as by amputating a limb. Second, smothering a child so his crying doesn't reveal the presence of a group pursued by murderers is permitted. This happened during the Holocaust and in Israel. Third, if a besieged group is told, give us so-and-so or we'll kill all of you, we must deliver so-and-so to them. So-and-so becomes a pursuer. However, if they do not specify who is to be delivered to them, we may not do it. Tosefta says, quote, but if they are told, give us any one of you or we'll kill all of you, we may not, because it's not up to us to decide who lives and who dies. Fourth, one may separate conjoined twins who would otherwise die, even when it's likely one will die, if this saves the other. The one who dies is a rodef. Is torture allowed? All agree that one may not torture for punishments, or retaliation, or intimidation, or threats. Most agree that one may not torture to elicit a confession of crimes. There is a dispute about what to do if torture saves lives. For example, eliciting information about imminent terrorist attacks, known as the ticking bomb scenario. It is allowed. Is it allowed? The informant being considered a rodef, a pursuer? Most Orthodox scholars say yes, then no. More Orthodox scholars say yes, then no. May one place oneself at greater risk just to reduce enemy casualties in a war? Note first that Israel does just that. In 2002, Israel went house to house in Jenin to hunt down terrorists and lost 23 soldiers. These 23 would not have died if Israel had attacked only from the air and caused hundreds of civilian casualties. Second, Hamas and Hezbollah fired tens of thousands of rockets at Israeli cities. Israel could carpet bomb Gaza and southern Lebanon and eliminate the threats, but doesn't. Third, Israel canceled many anti-terrorist missions because their targets were mixed with civilians. Jewish law does not say whether to require or even permit this. Many interpret this to mean the answer is obvious. It's not allowed. Many rabbis rule that it is forbidden to risk Israeli lives just to spare enemy civilians. However, one must look at the big picture. If it is felt that Arab casualties will later endanger Israeli lives because of Arabs seeking revenge, then risking Israeli lives may be permitted. The Talmud says that the ruler is allowed to risk up to 1/6 of his population to secure his nation in war. Quote, Shmuel said, a government who kills 1/6 of its own people by causing their deaths in war is not punished, unquote. If you or your loved ones are starving, Are you allowed to steal food from those who have more than they need? Yes. You may save a life with someone else's property. If it's your own life, you must pay for the damage later. If it's another person's life, you don't have to pay, so you won't refrain from saving it. Should a Jew break commandment to save non-Jews? Since the stated objective is to maximize mitzvot, then non-Jews must not be included, since most mitzvot are incumbent upon Jews alone. Is that the case? This has been a source of much anti-Semitic criticism from Gentiles. Let's examine the issue. The Mishnah says, quote, every danger to human life suspends the laws of Shabbat. If a rock slide falls on someone and you don't know whether or not he's buried there, or whether he's alive or dead, or whether he's Jewish or not, dig into the heap of debris even on Shabbat. If you find him alive, remove the debris and free him. If he is dead, leave him there until Shabbat is over, unquote. The Gemara adds, one must free him even if it is clear that he will live only a short time. It does not actually say, but may imply that non-Jews are ignored. At any rate, this is not followed today, as there's no evidence it was ever followed. It has been regularly watered down over the centuries. What if he's a non-observant Jew? Shabbat must be violated to serve a non-observant Jew, because he may later repent, recognize his sins, and reform and perform mitzvot. What if he's not Jewish, but observes the 7 Noahide laws? These are no idolatry, murder, blaspheming, adultery, stealing, eating limbs off live animals, and establish courts of justice. The Ramban says, one may violate Shabbat to save a ger toshav, a Gentile who has officially accepted on himself to live a righteous life. What if a Jewish person's life is not in danger, but he is in danger of following fewer mitzvot? Quote, suppose a young girl is kidnapped to be raised as a Christian. May Shabbat be violated to rescue her, even though her life is not in danger? Yes, so she has the opportunity to follow mitzvot in the future. What if not saving Gentiles on Shabbat results in ill will that may endanger an entire Jewish community? Then save Gentiles on Shabbat. The practice today is best described by Rabbi Dov Karol of Yeshivat Har Etzion. Quote, many authorities over the last few hundred years ruled that the understanding which the Gemara takes for granted cannot be assumed in modern society. Rather, they claim if Jewish doctors refuse to treat Gentiles on Shabbat, this refusal could have disastrous ramifications, either for the doctor himself or for the Jewish community as a whole. As such, they rule that one should take whatever actions are necessary to save the life of a Gentile, even if it requires violation of Shabbat laws. So Gentiles may be saved on Shabbat. Whether one believes it's a self-serving expediency or doing the right thing doesn't matter. Only actions count, and one is supposed to do it. Let us conclude with the wise words of the Mishnah. Whoever destroys one life is considered as if he had destroyed an entire world, and whoever saves one life is considered as if he had saved an entire world. Shabbat shalom.